Today is June the 16th. Today, Moses gives Israel a pre-game speech. Let's find out together what he says as we study Deuteronomy 25 to 27. Today, as we read through the Bible in a year, I'd like you to read Deuteronomy chapter 25 through chapter 27. Now, chapter 25, if you'll remember, Moses is finishing up his second speech in Deuteronomy to Israel. The first speech runs about 4 chapters. It's a quick review of where they've come from. The second speech is by far the longest. It runs from chapter 5 really to about the end of chapter 26, about where we're looking at here. And he is treating all of the laws, all of the commandments, what he wants Israel to do once they occupy the promised land. 25 is the last real chapter of laws, and it's just a hodgepodge of laws. He treats many different things from justice issues to punishment to marriage and things like that. Starting in chapter 26, he says, now when you get to Israel, you're going to plant. And when you plant, the Lord will give you fruit. Don't forget that the Lord is the one who's done this. So in chapter 26, take some of the first produce that you have. And in verse 3, go to the priest in charge at that time and say to him, with this gift I acknowledge to the Lord your God that I have entered the land he swore to our ancestors he would give us. Later on in verse 10, and now, O Lord, I brought you the first portion of the harvest that you've given me from the ground. And then in verse 15, praying to the Lord, now look down from your holy dwelling place in heaven and bless your people Israel in the land you swore to our ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. The first thing that Moses says in this pre-game speech to Israel just before they enter the promised land is, be thankful. God is doing this for you. Never forget that. Be thankful. The second thing he says, starting in chapter 26, verse 16, today the Lord your God has commanded you to obey all these decrees and regulations. So be careful to obey them wholeheartedly. Chapter 27, verse 1, Moses and the leaders of Israel gave this charge to the people. Obey all these commands that I'm giving you today. And at the end of that short paragraph in verse 10, so you must obey the Lord your God by keeping all these commands and decrees that I'm giving you. In his pre-game speech, Moses says 2 things to Israel. He says, first of all, the Lord is going to give you a victory. You're going to win the game. When you do, be thankful and obey. That's great advice for us even today. Spend some time as we finish up here looking at what God has done for you. Be thankful for that. Then look at what he's asked you to do. Obey. Please like, follow, and subscribe to this devotional on whatever platform you use to listen to it. Email your questions to us at questions@becomehope.com. Tomorrow, we'll look at God's long-term view